Okay, bring the mic down. That's a good start. So, this is just another video that I'm making. I've I've been sat here watching people talk about FNAF games all day, and obviously, hey, I FNAF. I know FNAF. I know FNAF very well. I followed FNAF for a very long time. Um, Now the fact I've never played any of these games, I don't think affects how I rank them in this list, because again, I've watched them extensively. I could reel off the mechanics back like word for word, which I probably will end up doing because I want to talk in detail about all of these games. And I at least have some experience with most of them. Like I've played FNAF 1, obviously I've played UCN, Help Wanted, Pizzeria Simulator. I'm not a stranger to these games. So I'm not gonna like ramble on too long. I'm just gonna start ranking these because I really want to talk about FNAF. So the original FNAF game, this isn't where it's going, I'm just putting it up on the list. The original FNAF game was kind of, I think, incredible for its time. 2014. Obviously, I didn't play it in 2014. I didn't know about it until much later. But the ambience of that game, the simplicity. There's only four characters after you, potentially five when we get into the lore aspect. But there's four threats. You can track them all. You know, there's the bit of uncertainty around Freddy in the first two nights because he's literally inactive. You just see him standing there, and it's that fear of the unknown that really captures how uncanny and dangerous the situation potentially is. Obviously you see main threats Bonnie and Chica, and obviously the fact that the cameras are slightly underutilized is a bit of a problem. You just wait for them to appear in the door, close the door. But I think if you're coming at it from a casual perspective, where your mind wants to track Bonnie and Freddy, not Freddy, Chica, yeah, it's really good. It's got really creepy ambience. Um, the jump scares as well. I've always thought this. They look the most kind of real. Like from FNAF 2 onwards, they're a bit cartoony. But in that first game, I'll see if I can find a clip to illustrate my point. But there's this uncanny kind of realistic look to it in my eyes, anyway. Um, and I think as a starting point, it's a great game. Obviously, it started the whole FNAF ball roll in terms of story. You had the missing children's reports on some of the cameras. You had the "It's Me" of Golden Freddy, which is still, I think, very creepy when you go back and watch "It's Me." Like I remember seeing it in Markiplier's video, which probably will definitely be in the background right now. Um, it's a cool Easter egg, you know. Um, Obviously it's no kind of it's no big spectacle. You survive your 5 nights, you get your paycheck, and that's kind of it. The sixth night and the 2020 mode of that first game is actually really cool. I go back and watch it all the time. So I think it's a great game. I think yeah, you're not gonna it was hard for him for Scott to hit that kind of high first time, but he did it. I really appreciate it. Pizzeria Simulator. Now, I find this game really charming. I know it's quite silly. The tycoon aspect, along with the horror elements of the nights, it's quite silly. But it is the game I find myself watching the most often. Obviously, actually, we'll get to that later. The core gameplay loop, the salvaging is really cool. The fact you have to shock them every night, or you can just throw them back into the alleyway. That's really cool. All of that. And then obviously your tycoon aspect, you can accept monster trips, get money, build the best tycoon you can. That's really kind of got a nice charm to it. Um, it's one I find myself playing quite a lot. The actual knights, the core gameplay loop of the knights could have been better. There is a way to um kind of exploit it, setting the audio low in certain places, and obviously the sound cues in that game are terribly quiet, which is also a problem that FNAF 4 had. Um, but yeah, for just for that the standalone game, it's a good gameplay loop, and it's just a bit of fun. But obviously the lore is where this game fully shines. By this point, a lot of the kind of FNAF lore is... It's up in the air, it's very much in question, which is making me think I should have done these games in order, which I am going to do after Pizzeria Sim. Yeah. But yeah, so there's all the endings in FNAF 4. You get to see the Afton blueprints if you buy the Egg Baby, which I think is one of the most fascinating parts of the game. You get to see the Scooper and how Remnant works. Obviously you have the canon ending of the game for completing the other mini games like Midnight Motorist, the Fruity Maze, Security Puppet. Yeah. And yeah, the burning down of the fire with William Afton, Elizabeth Afton, all of the fun times in the film Molten Freddy and the Puppet, and then Henry's speech as well. It's that ending sequence is the best ending to a FNAF game ever. I know UCN's 9800 cutscene is really good, but Henry's speech is the best ending in any FNAF game. So where I would rank Pizzeria Sim in... I want to say could be better. I really do like it. I think these tiers are missing it. I want to rename them. I'm gonna put this one as good, because I think that's a good kind of I don't think it could have been better. I think it is a good game. Well, other aspects I changed, yeah. The jump scares are obviously not great, but then again, I'll get back to jump scares, but they're not great. Again, audio's a bit quiet. There's no kind of visual cues on the nights. You're just kind of all relying on audio, but that's not new. This isn't a new thing, so that's not Pizzeria Simulator's fault. But yeah, in short, good game. So we'll go in order. FNAF 2. This, I think, is a step up gameplay-wise from FNAF 1. Obviously, there's a lot more threats that are kind of present than just the 4 in FNAF 1. But I think they're balanced really well, you know? You have all these threats. There's a new mechanic of the Freddy head. There's Foxy, who doesn't use his mechanic. He's just the flashing of lights. Camera's a bit underutilized because you kind of have to always be on the prize corner camera to be winding up the marionette. Especially in the like kind of ultimate mode for that night, all 120. There is a lot of expansion on the lore, obviously, in the death mini games. We finally get the introduction to the purple guy, as he's been so graciously dubbed, or William Afton. And he kind of becomes, in a way, the antagonist, but also the protagonist of these games. You know, it is his story at the end of the day. You know, obviously, he's on the front of FNAF 3. He becomes Springtrap eventually. Spoiler alert for I don't even know how old FNAF 3 is, or FNAF 2 for that matter. But yeah, he's our foundation of this universe, I suppose. Obviously, there's Henry. There's Henry and the whole of the kind of FNAF corporation that comes in later games like Hell Wanted and AR, especially Security Breach. But he is what grounds us in kind of the story, which I think is really important. And there's still a bit of ambiguity, because in FNAF 3, like, we know what's going on. William Afton is a child murderer, but we see him commit that first murder in the FNAF 2 death minigame. I think it's Take Cake, which is obviously a really integral part of the whole story. It's Charlie Emily's murder, which is the inciting incident, I think, in the FNAF universe. I'm not a FNAF expert. Go watch Matpat, obviously. So I think FNAF 2 is actually great. I really like FNAF 2. I know the jump scares definitely leave a lot to be desired. I do like some of the lunging jump scares, like I think Foxy does it and the puppet, and it is really good. Yeah, so that's where I'm gonna put FNAF 2. Not above FNAF 1 though. FNAF 3 now. It's definitely unique. It's a unique game. The kind of the integration of only one threat among kind of distractions is actually a really cool idea for a gameplay loop. Obviously, you have the two panels for resetting your audio, your visual, and your ventilation. I think I've never actually played FNAF 3. FNAF 3 is probably the area I'm least knowledgeable in. Apart from the lore, I know all about the lore. Well, all about. Let's not go that far. Obviously, I do think the gameplay loop is really cool. I think it could get a little overwhelming sometimes. Obviously, the cameras are very staticky in that game. But again, from a lore perspective, this game really kind of steps it up. There is all of the 8-bit mini games you can find. You know, plugging the keypad into the wall. Still an interesting choice. And then obviously the ending. There's the happiest day ending where all the souls get released or whatever, and that's the true ending. But the ending where we see William Afton disassemble all the robots and become this Springtrap who's been sealed in the wall for 30 years, that is such a cool kind of... You're piecing together a story that takes place in universe like 30 years prior. You're learning what happened to him, and you're learning who it is. You're learning. You learn at the end of the game that the person that's been trying to kill you this whole time, the animatronic, is the killer. It's the antagonist of the series. In a way, you've kind of become integrated into the FNAF story as a character. You're not just some nameless night guard. You have finally faced the major antagonist. And I think that's really cool. Jump scare, obviously the the Springtrap jump scare is very lackluster. He feels like he's gonna come talk to me about car insurance, but I think that's okay. I do think it is an okay game. It's not the gameplay loop. It's not for me, but obviously the lore and the whole story surrounding it, I think it stays in good. Not above Pizzeria Simulator, but I think it's good. So move on to FNAF 4. I feel like I'm speaking very fast, but I don't want to make this video like 2 years long. And obviously, I want to say my piece for all these games, but I probably should breathe. So FNAF 4 is... Let's talk about gameplay. The gameplay loop is different. You're not in an office. There's no kind of phone guy like there was in previous games. So there's even less explanation. Like in the first 3 games, there was a phone guy saying, "This is where you are." The animatronic, they move around at night. In FNAF 4, you are thrown into a bedroom from presumably the perspective of a child, based on the room, and you just have to defend yourself against the most nightmarish designs in the series. And that kind of absence of information is really it really helps this game. The Atari style minigames after every night that kind of drip feed you the story, I think are an okay addition. I don't know if they would have worked better as cutscenes, but it works. You know, it does a good job of kind of spacing the information out while still withholding enough to leave room for theories, of course, which are really important in this franchise. I don't really know what else to say about FNAF 4. It's the one I have the least experience with. The kind of the lack of not lack of the I know there was a problem with kind of the quietness of audio cues again, which again FNAF 4 is a very audio cue heavy game, like Pizzeria Simulator. Because obviously you can see the Freddles, you can see Foxy, but those hallways, you rely on your ears and that's it. There's no kind of visual stimuli to say if they're there or not. So yeah. The fact it got a Halloween DLC which added all these characters like Nightmare BB, Nightmare Mangle, and the Nightmarion, it is really cool. I should probably talk about the characters actually in these games. The nightmares are, some people say they're over the top. I think they actually work really well. Because if it is from the perspective of a child kind of imagining these animatronics, it is likely they would over exaggerate them to have the features that they have in that game. So I think it works in universe, which I really like. Nightmare Fredbear is, I think, genuinely terrifying. The fact he has stomach teeth is kind of funny, but also it is fucking terrifying. Um, so yeah, FNAF 4, I'd put it at the top of good, in my opinion. This is probably not what your opinion is. I'm gonna have some fucking bonkers opinions, but this is kind of what I feel. Sister location. So, I feel everyone is very divided on sister location, but my opinion is fact. So let's talk straight. Obviously, the main drawback to sister location is there's not much replayability. There isn't. It's you play the game once, you know what happens, you leave it. But from a story perspective, that is a good thing. Sister location is a gap bridger between what came before and what's next. These 4 games feel like their own story. This is kind of bringing in this game. So, sister location, it follows one story. You play the game, there's a few... It does sometimes just feel like you're watching a movie, but I don't think that's the worst thing. The Funtime animatronics are some of my favorite designs. They creep me out the most, especially Ballora. Because she's the most kind of humanoid thing we have ever got in this series. You know, there was Balloon Boy, but he was cartoonish. Ballora feels the most humanoid, and that level of uncanniness just doesn't sit right with me. And I think that's good for a FNAF game. And then Funtime Freddy is just one of my favorite designed animatronics. The Bonbon Hand puppet it has so much character, I love it so much. Another, I know this is going away kind of from the main game, but the custom night mode for that game is kind of what really made me like it. Obviously, the mini games in there that show Michael Afton with all of the animatronics inside of him, they're some of the coolest cutscenes we've ever gotten. The ending where he becomes just a husk of himself, and then the cutscene where he talks to Springtrap in the burned down Fazbear Frights location. It is a really good cutscene. It really kind of ties together this story. It grounds it back to those first games, while also realizing that there is a new protagonist. It's Michael Afton. He becomes kind of our hero. And I don't know how he feels towards his dad. I don't know if it's resentment. I don't know if they're working together. I've not followed the FNAF lore for quite a while, and Security Breach really wasn't my cup of tea. We'll get to that later. But I think Sister Location, at its core, does its job. It's a story game, and some of the story beats are really cool. The fact that you're being lulled into a false sense of security for the entirety of the game by Baby, and the fact that all the animatronics are banding together into one to try and escape is a really cool concept, which I think puts it at the bottom of great. So here's where my controversial opinion comes in. Ultimate Custom Night. Obviously, this is the only game I've shown me playing on this channel, because it's the only game I have. But, still, I think this game is really good. I think there's a complete absence of story. To know the story of Ultimate Custom Night, you have to have kind of played the other games. It does not stand alone. Well, it does stand alone in a way. But story-wise, obviously, the theory is that it's not Michael Afton, William Afton in Purgatory in Hell after the fire in Pizzeria Simulator. that I mentioned, the M reset. But from a looping gameplay perspective and from a replayability perspective, this game is absolute perfection. You can do anything you want with this game. Yes, the jump scares are not scary. Absolutely not. No. And it's a very frustrating game. But just the sheer amount of different combinations, you can play it however you want to play it. And that is what most people will want out of a game. They want to be able to have a different experience with it every time. They don't like Sister Location. A lot of the beats are scripted, so you kind of play the same game every time. UCN, the game can be whatever you want it to be. It can be as hard as easy. Sometimes there's randomness, like DD, that's something out of your control. But it's not a bad thing. It forces you to learn on the fly. There's so many mechanics in the game that you have to learn. Once you learn them, it feels so rewarding. And the intermissions aren't my favorite. Like the Toy Chica High School and the Freddy and Foxy, they're not my favorite. The final one of Golden Freddy, twitching, is a really good one because, again, it's a cutscene. While cool and calling back to those old games, it's that ambiguity. You don't know what's going on. You just see a character you know doing something that you don't know why they're doing it, and it raises questions and gets people talking about it, and that's what's so important. So that's kind of my piece on Ultimate Custom Night. I think it is, if you're gonna play a FNAF game, that is the most FNAF game you can play. If you're going for story, play one of these. But if you want to play just some FNAF, play Ultimate Custom Night. It's the perfect blend. Help Wanted is also just a really good game. From a story perspective, I really don't love it. But I am one of those people. The story of FNAF doesn't mean the most to me. I follow it. I know it like the back of my hand. But it doesn't mean the most. If the story was bad in a FNAF game, it wouldn't stop me from playing it. Like that's not how I drive. But just Help Wanted, if you have nostalgia for FNAF, it's a perfect game. And I have nostalgia for FNAF, not like to the extent other people do of like 2014. But I've played it. I went to a friend's house and played this, and the atmosphere and the kind of the new perspective on something you already know it's so refreshing, and it feels so fun to play. And obviously there's new modes like the parts and service modes are so good. Like when you get to repair the original 4. And what are the new modes were there? The vent repairs. The vent repairs are so... The claustrophobia of it, it's so good. It feels so... Like... It's such a fresh experience. While also paying homage to what came before it. Which I know the games have been doing a lot, but... They kind of have to. Yeah, like I said, the story with the tapes and Glitch Trap, it's not my favourite. I think Help Wanted is where FNAF really jumped the shark. I think if the story had ended with UCN, where William Afton's in hell, and it's just, he's in a prison of his own mind, that's it. That is the fate of our killer. He doesn't come back. He's not anything else. He's just gone. And now he's eternally suffering. That is the perfect send-off to the antagonist, obviously. But yeah, Help Wanted from a gameplay perspective, I think, is above the original FNAF. For gameplay alone. Obviously, yeah, I don't have to explain myself. FNAF Special Delivery. So this is one I have never played and not seen much of. I wanted to play it. The gameplay loop seems very repetitive, and it just seems like kind of a mobile game. I guess I do appreciate the fact that, you know, I actually don't know what I was going to say there. FNAF AR, I don't really know what to say about it. You know, the premise is cool. The augmented reality aspect is really cool. But other than that, I don't think there's much story there. There's the email logs, I believe, maybe. I really don't know what to say about the game. I've not seen much of it. I know the core gameplay loop of shocking animatronics had a sense of your gaff. But other than that, I'm just gonna put it there. Now, FNAF Security Breach is a game. I know people like to complain about all of the kind of glitches and the kind of bugs in the game. That's not really what bothers me. In fact, I thought it added to the game. It gave it personality, which I know isn't what everyone wants. Obviously, you're allowed to be entitled to when you pay for a game and it's full of bugs and glitches and kind of makes it harder to be immersed and get an experience from it. Security Breach just wasn't my type of game. Obviously, it is a far departure to what came before it. I know AR kind of was, but a far departure from all of this. The kind of push buttons, stay safe. This is a whole open world you have to deal with. It's a huge environment, and in some aspects, it looks incredible. It is such a cool environment, but it's not my style of FNAF game, which obviously makes me kind of biased because it's not the type of game I'm good at or enjoy. The kind of the stealth, the creating distraction sort of thing. If you are a fan of those games, I'm sure this game is actually pretty damn good. The animatronics added, I actually like the look of the Glamrock animatronics. Montgomery Gator is really goddamn cool. And obviously Glamrock Freddy being like the secondary protagonist is a really cool feature. Like, there's never kind of been an animatronic that's as predominantly helpful as Freddy has been, which is kind of a refreshing take, I think. But again, the gameplay's not really for me. The endings leave a lot to be desired. The Burn Trap ending was just really disappointing in my eyes. And I'm just tired of Springtrap. I mean, William Afton should have been laid to rest a long time ago. Help Wanted really assassinated his character, but Security Breach just confused me more. Like, it didn't make sense for him to be there. So Security Breach, I'm not gonna put an F because it is a fully fleshed game and I can see why people would like it, but it's not going any higher than the end of good because I can't comfortably I can't put it any higher than that. It's not the type of game I enjoy. But that is my FNAF tier list. Feel free to disagree with me if you have any differing opinions. I would actually love to hear them. I don't really know where the FNAF fandom stands with their likes of games. I know I know Sister Location split. I really don't know where people stand on it. I definitely don't think people have UCN as their first choice, but it's just my opinion. But yeah, disagree with me in the comments. I'll reply to any kind of other rankings you have, and I'll hear you out. But yeah, that's gonna be all from me. Thank you for the recent support on the 40-20 mode beaten on UCN. I didn't expect that video to do as well as quickly as it has. It's really motivated me actually. It feels really good. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you whenever.